So we'll be reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse number 48. Please repeat after me. Yogastha kuru karmani.
Yogastu kuru karmani.
Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya.
Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya.
Siddhiya siddhyo samo bhutva.
Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva.
Samatvam yoga uchyate.
Samatvam yoga uchyate.
Yogastha kuru karmani.
Yogastu kuru karmani.
Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya.
Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya.
Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva.
Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva.
Samatvam yoga uchyate.
Samatvam yoga uchyate.
Yogastha kuru karmani.
Yogastha kuru karmani.
Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya.
Sangam tyaktva
Taktva Dhananjaya.
dhananjaya.
Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva.
Siddhya
Sitya
siddhyo
Sitya Samo Bhutva.
Samatvam yoga uchyate.
Samatvam Yoga Uchyate.
Would someone like to chant?
Yogastha kuru karmani.
Yogastha
Yogastha
kuru
Kuru
karmani.
Karmani.
Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya.
Sangam
Sangam
tyaktva
Tyaktva
dhananjaya.
Dhananjaya.
Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva.
Siddhya
Sitya
siddhyo samo
Satsityo Samo
bhutva.
Bhutva.
Samatvam yoga uchyate.
Samatvam
Samatvam
yoga
Yoga
uchyate.
Uchyate. Yogastha Kuru Karmani.
Yogastha kuru karmani.
Sangam Tyaktva Dhananjaya.
Sangam tyaktva dhananjaya.
Sitya Sityo Samo Bhutva.
Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva.
Samatvam Yoga Uchyate.
Samatvam yoga uchyate. The synonyms: Yogastha,
Yogastha.
equipoised.
Equipoised.
Kuru,
Kuru.
perform.
Perform.
Karmani,
Karmani.
your duties.
Your duties.
Sangam,
Sangam.
attachment.
Attachment.
Tyaktva,
Tyaktva.
giving up.
Giving up.
Dhananjaya,
Dhananjaya.
O Arjun.
O Arjun.
Siddhi asiddhyo,
Sitya Sityo.
in success and failure.
In success and failure.
Samah,
Samaha.
equipoised.
Equipoised.
Bhutva,
Bhutva.
becoming.
Becoming.
Samatvam,
Samatvam.
equanimity.
Equanimity.
Yoga,
Yoga.
yog.
Yoga.
Uchyate,
Uchyate.
is called.
Is called.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjun, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. Purport. Krishna tells Arjun that he should act in yoga. And what is that yoga? Yoga means to concentrate the mind upon the Supreme by controlling the ever disturbing senses. And who is the Supreme? The Supreme is the Lord. And because he himself is telling Arjun to fight, Arjun has nothing to do with the results of the fight. Gain or victory are Krishna's concern. Arjun is simply advised to act according to the direction of Krishna. The following of Krishna's dictation is really yoga, and this is practiced in the process called Krishna consciousness. By Krishna consciousness, only can one give up the sense of proprietorship. One has to become the servant of Krishna. or the servant of Krishna. That is the right way to discharge duty in Krishna consciousness, which alone can help one to act in yoga. Arjun is a Kshatriya, and as such, he is participating in the Varnashram Dharma institution. It is said in the Vishnu Puran that in the Varnashram Dharma, the whole aim is to satisfy Vishnu. No one should satisfy himself, as is the rule in the material world, but one should satisfy Krishna. So, unless one satisfies Krishna, one cannot correctly observe the principles of Varnashram Dharma. Indirectly, Arjun was advised to act as Krishna told him. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschat Deshtarine. Okay, so this is a beautiful verse here. So Krishna, I'll read the translation once again. It's a simple one-line translation. Perform your duty equipoised, O Arjun, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity is called yoga. So here basically we see that Krishna is advising Arjun to abandon all kinds of attachment to success or failure and be equanimous. And Krishna is saying that such equanimity is called yoga. So this is a very, very practical advice that Krishna is giving Arjun. Basically, when we are in this material world, right? All of us, no matter who we are, we have to act, right? Because as Krishna says, Sharir Yatra Pichatena Prasiddhyet Akarmana, right? No one can afford not to act, because if we do not act, we cannot even maintain this body, right? What to talk of anything else, right? So all of us are engaged in something or the other, some kind of work is prescribed to all of us. And we all engaged in that work. And in fact, a big portion of our time goes into the day-to-day activity, the karma that we are doing, right? Whatever the actions that we are performing. So according to the Varnashram system, right? Usually what the Varnashram system was created by Krishna, Chaturvarna Maya system, Guna Karma Vibhagasha, Krishna says, right? So based on the guna and the karma, not by birth, but it was supposed to be by one's propensity and actions, right? So based on an individual soul's propensity and actions, that soul, that person could either be a Brahman, Vaishya, Kshatriya or Shudra, right? So these four varnas were there. They still there are, right? So primarily these are the four types of engagements that we take up, right? Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra. Now, in this case, Arjuna is a Kshatriya, right? So for Kshatriyas, their propensity is to fight. So many times this question comes that why is Krishna convincing Arjun to fight the war when Arjun himself is saying that, what is the point of me fighting the war? Because the people on the other side of the battleground, they are my cousins, they are my own grandfathers, they are my own teachers, they are my own relatives, brothers, so on and so forth, right? So even if I win this kingdom and I kill all of them, what is the point of this kingdom, right? Because I will not be able to enjoy that kingdom. So what's the whole point of it? And if I lose, then of course, Kshatriya, when he loses a war, that's worse than death, right? So Arjun said that to me, it looks like in both the situations, whether I win or I lose, it's a lose-lose situation for me. That's Arjuna's argument, basically, right? But Krishna, he tells him that actually the argument that you're giving does not make sense. It is a foolish argument because you are thinking from a bodily perspective. You think that you are this body, right? And you think that you are the enjoyer. That is why you're saying that if you lose, you will become infamous. So that way, it's a lose situation for you. And if you win, then you'll be killing people who you love, right? So it will cause distress to you, and that therefore you won't be able to enjoy the kingdom. So because you're thinking from that perspective, that is the wrong way to perform karma. And such kind of a karma, as Krishna explains, causes karma bandhan. Yagnarthat karmano natra loko yam karma bandhana tad artham karma kaunteya mukta sanga samachara, Krishna says, right? So one should perform karma as a yagya. Yagnarthat karmano natra lokoyam karma bandhana. If a person does not perform his duties as a yagya, then those actions, those activities will cause karma bandhan, right? And a person who is free from the karma bandhan, that state is defined here, that equanimity, right? Without attachment to success or failure. Basically, if a person is performing his action without attachment to success and failure, he automatically frees himself from that karma bandhan, right? And that is only possible, that equanimity is only possible if we perform the action as a yagya, as Krishna is describing in the words that I just said. Yagnarthat karmano anatra lokoyam karma bandhana. But if a person performs his duties and his activities as a yagya, then mukta sangha samachara, Krishna says, right? It will 100% completely, not like 50%, 40%. Samachara means completely. Mukta sangha means you will be free from that attachment. So an action performed as a yagya has the potency to free a person completely from the attachment, the attachment to the material world, basically. The attachment that we have towards sense gratification, which is the primary reason for our sufferings in this material world, those attachments could be cut if we perform our actions as a yagya, right? And what is the meaning of yagya? Krishna says, Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam yatva mam shantiricchati. So basically, Krishna is saying that all of the yagyas and austerities that anyone performs, they are for my satisfaction only. I am the ultimate beneficiary. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram, and I am the proprietor of everything. Right? So basically, the other way to say that is, any action that we perform for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, that is called yagya, right? So this equipoise or that equanimity that Krishna is talking about here, although he is not directly saying, but as Prabhupada has very intelligently pointed out, that basically Krishna is instructing Arjun to fight for the pleasure of the Lord, because Krishna wants Arjun to fight. There is no point of thinking about success or failure. Because Krishna wants that to happen, for the happiness of Krishna, Arjun has to fight, right? And by doing that, he will automatically be detached from success or failure, right? One example that I really like is that of a nurse, right? So, a nurse who's working in a hospital, there are so many patients, particularly in the time of COVID, we see the hospitals have been full, and these nurses and doctors, they put in their best effort to save them, right? So what happens, the way a nurse works is, she has an 8-hour shift, right? She goes to the hospital. She's taking care of the patient, right? Running around here and there. Oh, this patient, we are about to lose this patient, number 16. He hardly has any time left. She immediately rings the doctor and asks advice of the doctor. His blood pressure is dropping fast. Doctor, what should I do? The doctor instructs, okay, give him this particular injection, and that should help him to revive. And in the meantime, I'll be there. So she performs that activity. The doctor comes, she moves on to the next patient, and she attends to that patient once again, right? And while she's doing that, she's also having an eye on the watch, right? Oh, it's already 4 p.m. My shift will end at 5 p.m., right? And then someone else will take her place. So although she's totally involved in taking care of the patients, but she is not at all attached, right? Because she's looking at the watch thinking, when will I quit, right? My job would be over. And as soon as she quits, right, the clock rings 5, and that is her time to leave. And she leaves, and by the time she's leaving, she finds out, the patient who she was attending to, number 16, has unfortunately passed away, right? And that is something that she knows that it happens every day in a hospital. There are so many patients who are in the ICU. There are, a certain number of patients that always die, right? So that's like a day-to-day activity. So she is not affected by that, right? So she's detached. So why is she detached? There is a simple reason, right? Because she thinks that I am not the owner. right? This hospital does not belong to me, and these patients do not belong to me. I'm simply a caretaker. I'm simply taking care of all of them, right? If she gets attached, just imagine a state. If a nurse gets attached to the patients, right, and those patients, they have to die every day, she will be totally devastated, right? She herself will become a patient one day, right? So that's simply not feasible for her. So she's totally detached, although totally involved in her work. She's taking care of everything very nicely, right? Running around here and there, making sure that she's able to give comfort to everyone. But at the same time, she knows that there is a family waiting for me. And the primary reason she's working this job, this tough job, two primary reasons, right? One is that she has a propensity to serve. Most of the time, if a person does not have a propensity to serve, a job like a nurse will be almost impossible, right? It's just not possible to fake that caring attitude, right? I mean, some people could be in that situation, but most of the time, uh, if a person has propensity to take care of others, only that person should become a nurse or a doctor, ideally, right? So because she has a propensity to take care of others, she takes up the job of a nurse. And the other reason is because she has to earn for the livelihood of the family, for the happiness of the family, right? The family who she is responsible for, her kids, right? She has to, for their happiness, she has to do that job, right? So they are the two primary things: propensity and happiness of the family, right? Similarly, we have to understand that all of us have certain propensities. Like in this case, Arjun, because he's a Kshatriya, he's born as a Kshatriya. It's not that because he's born as a Kshatriya, he's a Kshatriya, but because he has a propensity to fight. And that is why he's a Kshatriya, right? Guna karma vibhagasha, as Krishna says. It is not by birth. Although it got misconstrued very badly, everything, and that is the biggest misfortune in today's world, that the dharma, the religious principles religion has been totally spoiled by a handful of people uh, for their own benefits, right? They have spoiled so many things, right? The same thing happened in the Vedic religion too. The varnashram system was totally polluted, and it was totally hijacked by a set of people, the higher caste people. They just totally hijacked it for their own gains. They just said, our children should be the privileged ones, and they said that it's by birth, it's not by actions. And in fact, in our sampradaya, we are very fortunate. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was one of the foremost proponent of this idea that this varnashram system is based on guna and karma, not by birth. And he was a lion preacher. So he very proactively took that bhakti, Krishna consciousness is for everyone. It is not to be hijacked by a handful of Brahmins, right? So he was very, very bold, and he did that, right? So basically, the Varn is defined by propensities. And in this case, we see that Arjun has the propensity to fight. That's one, right? Therefore, Krishna is not telling him to go to a forest, right? Because even if he goes to the forest, the only thing he'll be thinking of is war, because that is his propensity. That is what he's born with, right? You just cannot in one day cut your propensities, right? It is possible by sadhana, right? The sadhan mark that we are following, right? By our sadhanas, the sadhana that we do, gradually those propensities will be taken care of, right? But it is not possible to give them up immediately. And Krishna, through the example of Arjun, is himself telling the ideal path, right? The ideal path is not to artificially give up our propensities, because if we do that, that will be foolish. The senses are so strong, as Arjuna says, that they are even stronger than the wind, right? Our propensities are so strong, even if we sit under a tree, our propensities will drag us, right? So there is no point of doing that. So what Krishna is suggesting to Arjun, that you have the propensity to fight, right? And fighting propensity is good because there is certain utility in which it can be utilized for the service of Krishna. Because one of the reasons Krishna appears in this material world is to establish the religious principles. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuga yuga, right? So Krishna appears in this material world from time to time for establishing the religious principles. And in order for him to do that, he need people who can fight for his pleasure for establishing the religious principles, right? And here we see that Kauravas, they are so inclined to destroy all the religious principles, they did not even spare the queen. What to talk about anything else, right? So Draupadi, she was disrespected in the courtroom, in the parliament house. Just imagine a country where, a prince, the prince, princess, even the princess is not spared, the queen is not spared, and she is disrespected in such a brutal way in the middle of the courtroom. What would happen to normal women in that kingdom, right? So such was that state. They had such polluted minds, and it was very, very important to not allow them to become the king of the entire planet, right? And therefore it was important for Kshatriyas, for people like Arjun, to fight and help Krishna, although Krishna does not need any kind of a help. But Krishna, out of his extreme mercy, because he's so merciful, he likes to engage his devotees in his service, right? And similarly, the devotees are always anxious to engage themselves in the service of the Supreme Lord. And that is how they get purified. So that's what Krishna is suggesting Arjun, that look, there is no point in you subduing your propensities. You will not be able to do that. What is ideal is, and you don't have to do that, right? So the ideal is you engage your propensities into my service, just like the example that I gave of that nurse, right? She has a propensity to serve. So she's serving the patients for whom? For the pleasure of her family. The true understanding is that our real family is, who is our real father? He is Krishna, right? He is our family. That is the true understanding, right? Mame vamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manasasthani indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. Mame vansho. So Krishna is saying that all the living entities are my part and parcels, right? So the real understanding is that Krishna is our spiritual father. He is the only one to whom we belong, actually. That is the topmost truth. And the biggest lie is that we belong to this material world, right? We never belong to this material world. We can never belong to this material world. Since time immemorial, we were never a part of it. We can never be a part of it. That is the biggest truth. And we have always been attached to Krishna, and we will always be attached to Krishna as his servants, right? In the loving relationship that we have with the Supreme Lord, with Krishna, right? So we have always been a part and parcel of Krishna, and we will always be a part and parcel of Krishna. And he's always engaged in reclaiming us. So that is the eternal truth. So our eternal father is Krishna. We are all his family, right? So it is our foremost duty, just like that nurse is working for the pleasure of her family. Similarly, we have to work for the pleasure of our family. And that family is Krishna's family. So with that understanding, once we understand this idea that we are not this body, but we are the soul, and we are part and parcel of Krishna, and we have to act for the pleasure of the Lord. And just like we are part and parcel of Krishna, similarly, my husband, my wife, my kids, who has given all of these to us? It's Krishna who has given us all of them, right? As the other verse I was saying, Bhoktaram Yagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. So he's Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He's the proprietor of everyone, including our family members. Everything, living, non-living, whatever we see around us, the only proprietor is Krishna. That particular fact we have to embed within our heart very, very clearly, day in and day out. That is why we have to remember that everything we see and we do not see, all of our family members, whether it is my husband, my wife, my kids, all of them, they belong to Krishna, and Krishna has provided us this responsibility to take care of them for a little while, right? What's the lifespan of a human being? Ideally 100 years, but these days it's even less, right? And it's hardly anything, right? It's like just goes by, right? Today, when you think about the time that you were in school and you look at your life today, it's like you hardly know how fast it passed, right? So many years have passed, and so many more years, whatever is left, will also pass by very, very quickly. And people come and go all the time, right? That's what is happening in this material world. People are coming, they meet for a little bit, and they go away, right? Just like in a train. When we are traveling in a train or in an airplane, right? there are passengers, our fellow passengers, we meet, we sit on, the seats right next to us, the other person is sitting. We start talking to them, we develop a little bit of a friendship, right? We share, a few things, and then eventually when the destination comes, we have to leave, right? They cannot come with us, we cannot go with them, right? This material world is exactly that kind of a place. We all appear here for a certain amount of duration, and we meet certain people, whether it be my wife, my son, our husbands, friends, whoever, right? We stay here for a little bit, we spend some time together taking care of each other for a little bit, and eventually we have to go, and that is the eternal truth, right? No one can say that they belong to their family members till eternity, and similarly the family members cannot say that they belong to us. All of us belong to Krishna, and that is the ultimate reality. There is no escaping that reality. All of us are Krishna's family, and he is the only owner of all of us, including our family members, right? So we have to remember this day in and day out, and we have to serve them through this understanding, right? And that's eventually will create that state that Krishna is talking about, that state of equanimity, where at that point we will not be attached to success and failure. That detachment will automatically come. Of course, it's easier said than done, but that is the path that has been recommended to us, right, by our acharyas and by Krishna himself. And that is the reality actually. We have to just, we have to think like that. We have to practice to think like that day in and day out. Till the time we do that, it is very, very difficult. It is extremely difficult to get success. We have to endeavor so much to get even small little bit of a material success, right? For a little bit of a material success, we have to work day and night. We have to totally get ourselves into it, right, to get material success. So just imagine, here we are talking about getting out of the circle of birth and death, where we have been stuck since eternity. That is the only thing that is going on. We have been moving across these 8.4 million species of life incessantly. We stay in one species for a little bit, then we move on to the next species, then we move on to the next species, right? So that's what is going on, the circle of life and death, and there is no escape. We have been stuck into it since time immemorial. So to go get out of it is not so easy, but we are extremely fortunate that in this age we got Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then we got his empowered representatives, particularly Srila Prabhupada, right? So Srila Prabhupada is the empowered representative of Mahaprabhu directly. He says, more Senapati Bhakti Yaiba Tathai, right? So he is the Senapati of the army of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we could see that practically, that how he cleansed the entire planet, right? Otherwise, how was it possible, right? So he did that. So we are extremely, extremely fortunate that we are a family of Srila Prabhupada, and eventually we are the family of Krishna, right? And we have to understand that all of things that we currently have, right, whether it be material or our family members, our wife, our kids, our father, mother, anyone, they belong to Krishna. They do not belong to us. We are simply caretakers, right? We have been put here just so that we can take care of them, right? But the ultimate objective is to get out of the circle of birth and death and get engaged in the loving service of the Supreme Lord, right? So as long as we work with that attitude, that we are simply taking care of these people on behalf of Krishna, they are actually Krishna's family. They are not my family. They are Krishna's family, and because they are Krishna's family, and Krishna has given us this responsibility to take care of them, we will take care of them on his behalf, to the best of our ability. But just like that nurse, she takes care of the patients on behalf of her family, and therefore she is not attached, right? Because she knows death is not in her hands, and she sees that death day in and day out. She's not attached. She's just doing it as a matter of duty, right? It's just her job. Similarly, we have to do it as our job, that Krishna has given us this job. And because it is our propensity, someone likes to fight, right? So he can become a soldier. Someone likes to take care of others, so he or she can become a doctor or a nurse. Some of us like have a certain level of mathematical mind, so we can become mathematicians. physicists, computer engineers, so on and so forth. There are so many occupations, right? So no matter what occupation we are involved with, we have to look at our occupation and our propensity. That's all it is. Because we have been born with certain propensities, we have to look at those jobs as a way to exhaust our propensity so that we can ultimately, by doing that, and those activities should be for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, right? And that will also keep our actions free from faults, right? Because Arjun, although he's killing so many people, but it's in the battleground and he's doing that for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So he is not acquiring any sins because of that, right? Similarly, if we perform action for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, right? We are, oh Lord, we have certain propensity, and that is why we are acting in this fashion, right? But please guide us so that we can always think about your pleasure, not our own pleasure, but your pleasure. With that prayerful mood, we should engage in our day-to-day activities, keeping in mind that we are doing this so that we can take care of Krishna's family. This house, everything that we have, it eventually belongs to Krishna. And when we do that, of course, it takes a lot of practice, right? As I said, this is easier said than done. But that is the only way to achieve this state of equanimity and perfection. It is not easy. And Krishna makes it very, very clear in Bhagavad Gita. Ananyas chintayantu mam ye jana pariyupasate tesham nityabhyuktayam yoga shemam mahamyaham, Krishna says. Yeah, right? So a person who is always ananyas chintayantu mam. Ananyas means no one else but me. We cannot think of anything else but just Krishna. That is the state that we have to achieve. 24/7 Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is not a part-time thing. It's not like, okay, 2 hours I am thinking about Krishna, but the remaining 22 hours I can think of Maya, right? It does not work that way. Ananyas chintayantu mam ye jana pariyupasate. Api chetu duracharo bhajante mam ananya bhak. Again, the word ananya is here, right? Ananya means nothing else, just me. Tesham satat yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. Again, the word satat. Tesham satat yuktanam. Satat means constantly, 24/7. No other engagement but Krishna, right? Devi hi asha gunamayi mama maya duratya mam eva hi prapadyante. Again, the word eva. So every verse you see in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna always has this qualifier. Ananya satatam eva. Nothing else but me. That is the only way to achieve perfection. We have to be Krishna conscious 24/7. There is no shortcut. And for us to be 24/7 Krishna conscious, we have to accept this advice, this absolute truth, that we do not belong to this material world. This material world does not belong to us. We are not this body, but we are the eternal servant of Krishna, his eternal part and parcel. And everything that is going on here, we have nothing to do with it. This is just a play, an act that is happening in front of our eyes. Our only business is to serve the Supreme Lord. We have to attain that state. And till the time we make it, we have to fake it. Because as you fake it, eventually you will make it, right? So this sadhan bhakti is essentially that, right? Currently we are chanting our rounds. We are hardly meditating upon Krishna, right? We are simply moving our lips. We are simply moving our tongue, right? But the process that has been given to us is so perfect that this sadhan bhakti will eventually lead us to a spontaneous bhakti, right? A natural anurag will develop. So that will eventually happen. But till the point that happens, we have to adopt the sadhan, right? Sadhan means it's like an equipment, right? If you have to go to a destination, right? Let's say you have to go to Switzerland and it's a very nice place. You are thinking about it, right? But just by thinking, you cannot go there. You have to work hard so that you can make enough money so that you can catch a flight, right? Then you take that flight and eventually that flight will land in Switzerland. Then you can go there and enjoy, right? Similarly, to attain that state, it is not easy. We have to make an effort, right? And when we make an effort, Krishna reciprocates, right? As he says in that verse, Ananyas chintayantu mam ye jana pariyupasate tesham nitya abhiyuktanam yoga shemam vahamyaham, right? Because they are constantly thinking of me, nitya abhiyukta. Nitya Abhyukt means always 24/7 engaged in my consciousness. I personally take care of whatever they lack, I provide, and whatever they have, I preserve. Right. So Krishna personally he reciprocates at that point when we attain that state. Right. But that state will only come through practice, and we have to try to trick ourselves, right? Because the mind, it's the to control the mind is very very difficult, right? Ashanchaya mahabaho mana durnigriham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha grihate. Krishna says through abhyasa, by practice, and by vairagya, through detachment, it is possible to control the mind, right? Even we see in the material world, if we have to pass a mathematics exam, how much practice it takes, right? You have to practice a lot in order to pass that exam, right? Just by reading it is not enough. So to attain Krishna, to control this mind, we have to trick our mind. We have to do practice. So we have to constantly think that this way, that I do not belong to this world. This world does not belong to me. This world belongs to Krishna, including all the living entities in this material world, including my family members, including the wealth that I have, including this beautiful house that I have. Everything that I have or I do not have belongs to the Supreme Lord. And even I belong to that Supreme Lord. And He has, out of His extreme mercy, out of His kindness, He has provided all of these things to me, right? Just look at His mercy, how merciful He is, right? Although I do not deserve this, I'm envious of Him. And because of that envy, I'm here in this material world, try to enjoy independent of that Supreme Lord, right? Trying to enjoy independent of Him. But He's so merciful that He's sitting inside me. Ishwara sarvabhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati brahmyan sarvabhutani yantra ruhani maya. Krishna says, I am sitting in every living entity's heart, and only then he is able to go about his duties in this material world. Ishwara sarvabhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati brahmyan sarvabhutani yantra ruhani maya. Right. So we are thinking that we are the doers, right? But if Krishna, he is not empowering us from within, there is no way we can do anything. We are so powerless. We have nothing actually. We are totally useless actually, right? We hardly have anything. But because Krishna, out of His extreme mercy, even though we are envious of Him, we want to enjoy independent of Him. We do not want to serve Him. And because of that envy, we want to become Him, right? We want to become the controllers. But out of His extreme mercy, He does not leave us, even though we have left Him. But Krishna never leaves us even for a second. And He has made such a nice arrangement, I need oxygen, so He has provided us oxygen right under our nose, right? You don't have to go anywhere to look for oxygen, right? It's been provided right over our nose because it's a requirement. Just imagine if you had to fetch, just like we currently have to buy a bottle of water from Walmart. If we had to do that for the oxygen, what an unfortunate state that would be, right? No one will be able to survive. But Krishna, out of His mercy, has arranged that right under our nose. We don't have to make any effort. It's just naturally available, right? Similarly, kids give us so much pleasure. Humans do not have to do anything. It's such a complicated process. Doctors still do not understand it completely, and they cannot control it, right? Such a complicated process. Just by combination of two cells, such a beautiful being gets created, which the scientists are still struggling for creating artificial intelligence, these robots and all of that. They're trying to mimic what Krishna has created, but they are not even 1% close to that, right? So Krishna, he is the most powerful, the ultimate authority. And out of His extreme kindness, He has arranged so beautifully all of everything for us. We have to think that way. That out of His extreme mercy, Krishna is so kind. There are so many people who are suffering in this material world, but He has provided so much to us, right? And if we get a little bit of a distress, we get totally mad. We start blaming Krishna. Oh, why did you do this? Why do you do that? As if we deserve whatever we have, right? So we have to attain that state of helplessness, basically. We have to attain that level of gratitude for everything that Krishna has provided us so nicely, so kindly, and we have to understand that ultimately everything, whatever we have, belongs to Krishna. We are not the proprietors. Isha Vashamidam Sarvam. Yat Kincha Jagatyam Jagat. Tena Tyaktena Bhunjita. Right? Magrira Kaswid Dhanam. So everything belongs to Krishna. He is the proprietor of everything. We have to think that way, that everything belongs to Krishna and we are simply the caretakers, right? And when we are taking care of someone else's belongings, right? If you know that you are not the owner, right? When we do not have Atma Buddhi, Mamatva, right? That this belongs to me. If you do not have that idea that this belongs to you, what happens to that thing, right? It won't really affect you to that extent, right? The example that I gave of that nurse, right? Because she knows that these patients, they do not belong to me, I do not belong to them. I'm simply here to do my job, right? Similarly, once we understand that, this does not in any case belong to me, this is Krishna's energy, this is Krishna's manifestation, I'm simply here because I'm envious of him, eventually I'm his part and parcel. And as long as, these things have been provided to me by Krishna's mercy, I'm simply a caretaker, right? So while you're taking care of it, right, if something happens to it, because you do not have an ownership into it, right? So in that case, whatever happens to it will not impact you to that extent. See the point? And that is the only way to achieve this state of equanimity that Krishna is speaking about. Abandoning all attachment or success, all abandoning all attachment to success or failure. This is the only way that we can abandon this sense of success or failure. What is that way? If we do not think of it that we are the owners, right? As soon as we think of something that we are the owners of it, it will immediately affect us, right? Because we will be attached to the success or failure of that thing, whether that thing stays or goes. As long as we have an Atma Buddhi into it, as we have a sense of ownership into it, we will be affected, right? But as soon as that sense of ownership is gone, we automatically get detached, right? Because we think it does not belong to me in any case, right? What's the point? Right? So that's the only way, by thinking that we are the part and parcels of the Supreme Lord, right? And he has so kindly arranged all of this to us. I do not belong to this material world. I have nothing to do with it. I am an individual soul who is the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And my business, this is like a play which is going in front of our eyes. Until the time we are here, we'll play our role because Krishna wants us to do that. But we don't care what's the end of this play, right? Because this play does not belong to us. We are not the directors. We are not the producer. That right is Krishna's right. He can direct the play whichever he wants, and he is directing it. Maya dhakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetu nanena kaunteya jagat viparivartate. Right? So there is this play going on, and Maya Devi, under the presidentship of the Supreme Lord Krishna, she's running the show, right? So she's the director, Krishna is the producer, and we, without any reason, we have nothing to do with it. We are getting distressed, right? So there is this play going on. Someone else is the director, someone else's money is involved in it, someone else is producer, and you get distressed. Oh, the play is not going good, right? That's foolishness, right? So we have to think like that we are not the owners of this material world. This material world does not belong to us. The one to whom it belongs, he should take care of it, and he is the one who will take care of it. But till the time we are here, we have to play a role in it, right? Because we love the person to whom it belongs, right? We love Krishna, right? So we just think of it that we have a certain role to play here. We will play that role to the best of our abilities. We'll try to satisfy him, and that's it. By doing that, by thinking that way, we can be Krishna conscious 24/7. And by thinking of Krishna 24/7, yena mam upayantite, dadami buddhi yogam tam, yena mam upayantite. Krishna will provide us the intelligence using which we can go back to him. Tesham satati yukta nam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. Krishna says, right? People who are constantly in this way, thinking in this way, people who are 24/7, devotees who are 24/7 thinking about me. Tesham satati yukta nam bhajatam priti purvakam, who are out of love and devotion always thinking about me. Bhajatam priti purvakam. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. I give them that intelligence. Yen mam upyanti te. Through which they can come back to me. Right? So that is the art. No matter how you do it, we just have to do it. By hook or crook. By hook or crook. Yogaratova, bhogaratova, sangaratova, sangavihina. Yasya brahmani rante chittam. Nandati, nandati, nandati eva. as Shankaracharya says, right? Yogaratova or bhogaratova. Does not matter whether externally you seem to be attached to this material world or you live under a tree inside a cave. It does not matter. What is your external appearance? Whether your appearance is that of a yogi or of a bhogi, it does not matter. Sangaratova, sangavihina, right? Whether you like to go to the parties or you like to sit inside a cave and meditate, that does not matter. What matters is yasya brahmani ramte chittam. How much are you engaged of thinking of the Supreme Lord, of Krishna? Your level of Krishna consciousness internally. How much are you thinking about the material world and how much are you thinking about Krishna? Yasya brahmani ramate chittam nandati 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 eva. Only that person who is 24/7 Krishna conscious can attain the true happiness, right? So externalities do not matter. No matter how you do it, by hook or crook, all of the principles have been provided to us, right? We have to take whatever works best for us, right? Because all of us have different propensities, right? Based on our propensities, as long as we are serious to attaining perfection, right, the mercy automatically will flow, right? And when that mercy flows, the Dami Buddhi Yogam Tam will happen, right? When we make our best effort, Krishna will take care of the rest. Prabhupada, our Guru Parampara will take care of the rest, right? As long as we put in our best effort to achieve that perfection, right? And when that happens, both the things are needed. First is our effort, then the mercy will flow, right? Krishna reciprocates. So as long as we have that true and intense desire to get out of the circle of birth and death and get back to the loving eternal service of the Supreme Lord, right? Things will be arranged for us, right? But that we have to constantly work on that desire to get stronger and stronger day in and day out. Every day that intensity, that longing to get back to the service of Krishna has to increase. And we have to mold our lives in such a way that that happens. We have to kind of measure it day in and day out. Every day when it passes, we have to see whether my desire to get back to the service of Krishna, has it improved a little bit or not? We have to do that assessment. And no matter how we do it, we just have to keep doing it. We have to come to that state where we are 24/7 thinking only about engaging ourselves again into the service of the Supreme Lord, right? Initially, we have to fake it, right? Because that's how we are conditioned. We have millions of lifetimes of conditioning programmed into our head, into our psyche, right? So till that programming, that conditioning goes away by constant chanting, right? Till that marjan happens. Marjan means cleansing. Cheto darpan marjanam, right? Till that cheto darpan marjanam happens, we have to fake it. We have to just externally try to chant, right? To the best of our abilities. We have to chant. We have to do our activity, whatever actions we are doing, we have to somehow think, we have to relate them to the service of the Supreme Lord, right? So we have to trick our mind so that we can think of the service of the Supreme Lord 24/7 for the pleasure that whatever we are doing for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, right? Gradually, when we do it, eventually it will become a reality. Gradually, by this training, we can understand, and Krishna will provide us that intelligence through which we can understand that in reality, we do not belong to this material world. We belong to Krishna, right? And then when that stage comes, right, when anartha nivritti process is complete, right, after doing bhajan kriya, right? So that's part of the bhajan kriya, which leads to anartha nivritti. And then nishtha will develop. Then our faith in Krishna will become strong, right? Then spontaneously we will be able to think about Krishna, right? And then ruchi, once the state of ruchi comes, just like currently we have to be kind of pull ourselves, we have to make so much effort to think about Krishna. We are kind of naturally attached towards serving the material world, right? But when the stage of ruchi will come, at that point we will have to force ourselves to engage into the material world. We will spontaneously be engaged in the service of the Supreme Lord, right? So that stage is a beautiful stage. But for us to be there, it's a lot of effort, a lot of conscious effort. But as long as our effort is sincere and conscious, there is a perfect arrangement that has been made for us to facilitate that experience, right? It just has to happen. So it's 7:53. I will stop here and see if there are any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu Pranam. This is Ganapata Govindas. Thank you so much for the wonderful class. And your classes, often I have noticed that it is like a mirror. I can see where I stand.
Mirror
when
for
I hear-
myself.
No, for me actually. And most of the times I feel like jumping out of the window after hearing your classes. But I know if I do that, then I'll put devotees into more trouble. They will have to come and serve me again. So I avoid that somehow or the other. But I really liked one of the points that you mentioned about that if I don't know which place you said. I think you said Mauritius. If we have to go to Mauritius, right?
Yeah, Switzerland actually.
Yeah, wherever, doesn't
Any-
matter. So
any
we
place
have
that
just thinking about going will not help. We have to do an effort
Mhm.
to go there. I like that point, but I also remembered that Ramanujacharya had mentioned in his teachings, and I really like that point, and that is one of the hopes for me.
Mhm.
He says that if you just have even if you don't do any devotional service, but if you just have a sincere desire to perform devotional service, but for whatever reasons you're not able to do that, that desire itself is so purifying, it is so potent, it is so sublime, that in the next birth you will get a very fantastic opportunity to perform devotional service and get out of the clutches of Maya. That's what Ramanujacharya says. So I found this very encouraging, and because at least I can say for myself that I don't have that that since I don't put enough effort actually. So that is one thing I want to mention. I had a question also for you, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu.
So you were mentioning about that we have to do our part, and when we do our part, the mercy will automatically come.
Mhm.
And that is true. I completely accept it. But my question is, sometimes we get challenged by Christians and Muslims that
Yes.
actually in the Vedic tradition, the fact that you have faith on doing sadhana, that means you don't have the faith on the Supreme Lord. Because if you have faith in the Supreme Lord, just having the faith in the Supreme Lord will take you back to the spiritual world. You don't have to do anything external. You don't have to put your own effort. It is all, Jesus will take care, or Allah will
Yeah.
take care, or whatever. That's
Yeah,
how
yeah.
they say it.
Mhm.
And to a certain level, it sounds a little convincing, but I don't know
Right.
how to answer those kind of questions. And
Yeah, thank you for asking that, Prabhuji. And through my very basic understanding, of course, I don't know much, but I will try to, based on whatever I think about it, I'll just try to say something, right? So, one example is, if we want to achieve something desperately, right, no matter what it is, right? If we want to attain something desperately, right, we will naturally be inclined to do something about it, right? For example, if a student, he wants to become the topper in the class, right? He just wants that, he wants to become the topper, right? He just cannot think, right? If that desire to become the topper is true, of course, all the 50 students in the class, they want to be the toppers. There will not be a single person, a single student in the class, if you go and ask him, that he does not want to be the topper, right? So all the 50 students, they all want to be the toppers, right? But the only person whose desire is intense enough that it drives him to do something about it, right? To make an effort about it. Only that person eventually attains that rank of a topper, right? Otherwise, all 50 people want to be the toppers, right? So the intensity of the desire is measured by our intensity of action to achieve that desire, in my understanding, right? So if our intensity to attain the service of the Supreme Lord is truly intense, we will convert that desire into an action. But if that intensity is just for the sake of saying it, right? I mean, yeah, we want Krishna, everyone wants to attain happiness, right? And Krishna is Satchidananda Vigraha, right? So everyone wants to attain. But if that is not translated into action, it actually means that we are more attached to Maya than we are attached to Krishna. But if we are truly if we are truly willing to attain Krishna's lotus feet, and we at that point we will be able to give up our comfort zone, we will be able to give up Maya if that desire is strong enough, and we will make an effort to attain the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So in my understanding, the effort is indicative of the strength of our desire to attain the Supreme. Instead of, it's not a matter of trusting Krishna. Of course, we trust Krishna. 100%, we have complete faith on it. But we cannot make it an excuse to become lazy. That's my understanding.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. I think that makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
Also, Garbati Govind, ultimately, no matter how much effort we make, it's not our effort that takes us back, right? I mean, ultimately, it is mercy that takes us back of Guru and Krishna. But we have to show at least our limited effort, right? To the degree we can, right?
Absolutely. Yes, I agree with you.
So thank you
But
so much.
ultimately, just like the Christians say, it is the mercy that takes us back. It's not our effort that takes us back.
Yep.
Anyone else? Any realization, questions?
Thank you, Prabhu, for your nice lesson, and thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Okay, so
Govind, I wanted to ask you a question. How can the Christians say that just plain old saying, I love you, Lord, and you will take care of me, and just plain old lip service, how can that take you back also?
So question for me, Mataji?
Yeah, I mean, I would question them back. How can just plain old lip service?
No, yeah,
take
that's right. We have to ask that counter question to them.
counter question? Exactly. I mean, if you know, like my son says, I love you, Ma, I love you, Ma, but if he's being lazy and not dependable and not doing anything for me, what's the point of his saying, I love you, Ma, you know?
Yeah. No, that's right. I mean, it makes sense, Mataji, definitely. My question was, how do we answer such things when we are challenged by people with these kind of things?
Right? Because love without showing any action is not real love.
Yep, and we have the example of Lord Ram in Ramayana, where this small squirrel, she was when they were building the bridge.
Or Garuda helping the bird.
Right. Exactly. So Lord Ram saw the squirrel trying her level best, and
Right.
Hanuman said that just get out of my way, you are obstructing me. And
So to one Christian, you know, I've given that example of the bird to one Christian, and she agreed. You know? She said,
Yeah.
I said, our little minimal effort has to be there. Ultimately, it's not we who take us back, you know, to the Lord. It is, but that whatever effort that we can to our maximum degree has to be there. The Lord has to see that we're making our effort, you know.
Right, yeah. When he sees that, okay, he's trying his best, let me give a little helping hand to him.
Right.
They can use what they're saying. They can use what they're saying to do any nonsense.
Right.
Say,
Right.
I love God, but I'm killing this one and that one. You know, there's people who do crazy things and they say they love God, you know.
Also, they go for confession. So they think that they're absolved of their sins, and then come back and do it again, and then go for confession again. If you're repeatedly doing the same thing, you're really not repentant, you know.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying the Christians, even we do it, you know, we also do it.
Action speaks louder than words.
That's why I don't make any confessions at all.
yeah, thank you all so much for a very lively discussion. So it's 8:02. We'll play 5 to all the Vaishnavas. Vancha रूपेश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो
पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः।
More questions?
अनन्तकोटि वैष्णव
जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय
जय।
Rasaraj,
भक्ताम की जय।
any more questions? Remember,
Yes.
Rasaraj was preparing questions.
No, Mataji, I didn't prepare.
Okay, okay.
I'll let.
You've been slacking, Rasraj Prabhu.
He has been busy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.